definitely do that. Okay, now let's see what Amna has shared, right? Amna has shared in the group, so let's open that. Okay, right. So here it is. Which question exactly you want us to do, Amna? Right. Amna, which question you want us to do? Can you hear me, Amna?
Yes, sir. I can.
Which question you want us to do?
Can we look at this entire paper?
Okay. So students, let's quickly read through the question and then tell me which question you want me to do today, and then we will do the remaining. We can do the remaining in the coming classes. Okay. Now the question here says the question 2. Let's start off from the top. The existence of externalities is neither a necessary nor a sufficient condition for government intervention to achieve efficiency in the economy. Interesting. Do you support this opinion? Now listen to me very carefully, students. The existence of externalities, you know what an externality is. When I do something, but the third party gets affected. When I am listening to music on a loud volume, other people, my neighbors, get negatively affected. That's negative externality. So the question says that existence of externality is not a necessary nor a sufficient condition for government intervention to achieve efficiency in an economy. Do you support this opinion? So that's the first question. I'll walk you through how you need to answer all of that, right? So let's discuss first this question, and then step by step, we'll discuss all those. And if in any question you need more support, I can tell you exactly how to write and what to write. Okay, now students, think about this. For this first question here, what you need to do is to define. Right, the wording of the question. Exactly. That's the big question. Mubin, that's the big challenge. In paper 4, you have to be very careful with the wording. You need to clearly understand what the question is asking for, because it's just one statement. And then you have to write an answer for 25 marks based around that statement. So I'll tell you today, and you will get to understand better how that happens. Okay. Now, students, it says externalities are neither necessary nor a sufficient condition for government intervention. Now, let me first tell you that what the statement is exactly saying over here, right? Now, students, think about this. Efficiency, if you remember, we talked about efficiencies and we said that economic efficiency is composed of two components, right? Productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Productive efficiency was when you produce something at the lowest possible cost. Producing something at the lowest possible cost is known as productive efficiency, right? When your average total cost curve is the lowest, that is where your productive efficiency is. Allocative efficiency, on the other hand, says that you should produce goods that are most wanted. Produce goods that are most wanted, that is allocative. Okay, now think about this. Allocative efficiency also says that you should produce goods in right quantities. Allocative efficiency says that you should produce goods that are most wanted, and you should produce all products in right quantities, optimal quantities. Now, what basically optimal quantity means, right? Now, the idea here is, students, that if, let's say, in a country, let's take an example, you're producing wheat or you're producing clothes, shoes, whatever you're producing, right? All the normal products that we see around us, right? If that product is underconsumed, underproduced, and underconsumed, right? So that is allocative inefficiency. Listen to me carefully. If you're producing something that is underproduced, right? That is allocative inefficiency. And we do know that allocative inefficiency exists in things like externalities. So think about this. If you are driving fast, right? There could be any type of externality. Let's think about smoking, right? People who smoke, how many times do they really care that they're smoking in a public space and other people around them are negatively affected? How many times, right? Not always. I mean, even if you say most of the times, not always. Do you agree with me, right? So not always smokers are concerned about that they're smoking in a public space and their other people are negatively affected. So that's a negative externality example. Now think about this. If these smokers are not considerate of the people around them, then they will over smoke. They will smoke in public spaces too much. Then what needs to be done? There needs to be a rule and policy to stop that behavior. And what is that policy? Government banning indoor smoking. Did you get the entire storyline? The storyline is that allocative efficiency says, right? So we are just focusing on that because the question is related to allocative efficiency. Even though it doesn't say, you should have enough knowledge of the content to understand where it's pointing us to. Allocative efficiency means producing goods that are most wanted and in optimal quantities. Optimal meaning appropriate quantities. We do know in economics that some products are overconsumed, some products are underconsumed. What could be a reason for that? Let's talk about externality as an example. In case of externality, when someone is causing negative externality, since they are not the ones being negatively affected, they don't care about other people. Are you getting me? I mean, there could be a couple of cases where people throw trash outside their homes. Why? Because, I mean, they're not getting affected. It's just out in the open, right? Similarly, not wearing a mask, a COVID patient or anyone like generally who is, coughing and sneezing and that person doesn't wear mask. So he or she doesn't care much because, I mean, he's already affected, but he can transfer that to someone else, right? So to control that behavior and to stop people from negatively affecting someone else, what you need to do is that you need to make a rule or a policy around it. Sometimes you impose taxes, sometimes you make a rule or a policy, right? So rule, policy, tax, and all that. Now the question is asking you, let's look at this question one more time, that when an externality exists, I'm explaining you in simple words. When an externality exists, right? Should government intervene in the market to control that externality? The existence of externality is neither a sufficient, is neither a necessary nor a sufficient condition. So it's saying that it's not necessary, right? That when there is an externality that the government should intervene. Now, what does government intervention mean? Government intervention means that whenever this is the intervention that I was talking about, when government is making a policy around something, that is what government intervention is. Government is intervening in the market to stop that behavior, right? So who can make a rule in Pakistan that people can't smoke inside? Is there a rule in Pakistan? In most cases, no, right? But if you go to countries like UAE or if you go to countries like Saudi, I've never been to Saudi, I can't say for sure, but I've been to UAE, I know for sure, and I've been to USA, I know for sure that you can't smoke inside, not in a closed premises. You can smoke out, right? There are obviously some other places as well which says no smoking zone, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, indoor smoking is completely banned throughout the country, right? Okay. So the government made this rule. The government made this policy. Yes or no, right? So that is what the question says, that is presence, whether presence of externality is a condition, is that a condition for the government to intervene in the markets, or the government should not be concerned about it? Government should be like, okay, fine. If someone is doing something and someone else is getting negatively affected, we don't care. We don't get bothered, right? So that's what the question is asking you to do. Right. Now we are coming that what all needs to be written as an answer to this question. So we will discuss overproduction of negative externality goods and over consumption of demand goods. And exactly correct, Amna. That's correct. Okay. Now for this question, first of all, we'll start off by defining what an externality is. Now, students, listen to me very carefully, right? Now, first of all, we'll start off by defining what an externality is. Like I said, so the externality is basically any positive or negative effect on the third party, right? So if you smoke, someone else is getting that passive smoking, that's negative externality. If I drive too fast on a road, I am putting other people lives at risk. Why? Because if I'm driving, carelessly, I can end up in a car accident. And if I end up in a car accident, I might hit someone else. So that person's life or property, which is his car, could be at danger or risk, right? So that's a negative externality. Smoking, pollution, drunk driving, all of these are what? Negative externalities, right? What is a positive externality? Positive externality being opposite of that is when I do something and someone else gets positive benefit, right? Let's say I put a water plant or I put a cooler outside my home, which you must have seen happens in a lot of countries. So people put some, water plant or something outside their home, because if people are thirsty, they can just come in and drink the water and go, right? So you are paying for the water and someone else is getting the benefit, right? So that's a positive externality. If I plant tree, that's a positive externality because that provides clean air to everyone, right? And so on and so forth. If I get COVID vaccination, then not only I am safe from COVID, other people are also safe from catching COVID, right? So these are some examples of positive externalities. Now, after you've defined positive externalities, negative externalities with examples, which obviously helps, and you should be writing such examples on your exam, then you will start off by defining what exactly economic efficiency is, because the question is trying to make a link between externalities and economic efficiency. Then you'll define what productive efficiency is. Like I said, productive efficiency is producing at the lowest possible cost. So when a business is producing something at the lowest possible cost, that's productive efficiency, right? How do we know if a firm is productively efficient or not? So we do get to find that out by looking at its ATC curve. By looking at the ATC curve of a firm, we get to find out whether the firm is productively efficient or not, right? So if these are three possible ATC curves, right? The lowest ATC curve is ATC 3. So what do we have on the y-axis? Average total cost. ATC stands for average total cost. What do we have on the x-axis? That's your output, right? So if you look at ATC 3, that's the lowest possible ATC curve, and this is productively efficient. 1 and 2 are not, right? So this explanation for this question would be enough, right? Then, because obviously the question is not directly related to productive efficiency, so you need not to go in that much detail, right? Then you will define allocative efficiency. You will say allocative efficiency is producing goods that are most wanted. Listen to me carefully. Producing goods that are most wanted and producing those products in optimal quantities, right? Allocative efficiency we are talking about. Producing goods that are most wanted, right? And what do I mean when I say most wanted, right? So most wanted means that right now, if Pakistan is facing scarcity of wheat, right, which is a basic necessity, basic food item. So countries should do what? Countries should prioritize on producing what? Countries should prioritize on producing wheat, right? That's what allocative efficiency says. And then the second part to allocative efficiency says that you should produce goods in right quantities, optimal quantities, right? So you will have price and cost on the y-axis for allocative efficiency graph. We are about to look at the graph for allocative efficiency, and you will have output or quantity on the x-axis. Now, what you will draw on this graph is basically two things, right? So you basically draw two things. One would be your downward sloping. One would be your downward sloping what? Demand curve. So your price is equals to, this is your demand curve, right? So basically demand curve also shows you the price on the y-axis, right? And the second thing that you need to add to this graph is your marginal cost. So marginal cost is the additional cost of producing each unit of the good, which is J-shaped. You can see for every business, the marginal cost is always J-shaped. And the demand curve for any product is downward sloping curve like this, right? Right. Now, where the price of the good intersects with its marginal cost, which is this point, that is your allocatively efficient output level. That is what? That is your QA, allocatively efficient output level. This means that the company or the firm should produce up till this point to be allocatively efficient. If you produce something less than this, right? So if let's say QA turns out to be 500 units, so the company should produce, or the firm should produce 500 units of the good. If you produce anything less than that, that's what? That's underproduction. What is it? It's underproduction. Are you getting me? Students, is this making sense? Right? So that's what you need to understand. Okay. Now, what I was saying over here is that we are talking about externality. Now you have to also explain in this question that how in negative externality and in positive externality, there is underproduction. In positive externality, there would be underproduction, and in positive externality, there would be overproduction. So that's what we are about to look at. So negative externality, there will be overproduction, right? And in positive externality, there will be underproduction, right? So that's what you need to explain. Ideally, now listen to me very carefully, students. If you can explain this concept, underproduction, overproduction of positive and negative externality through graph. If you can make graphs and explain it well, because you remember those graphs from your classes, then it's great. If you cannot, then do not bother yourself to make wrong graphs, right? There's no point in making wrong graphs. If you know the graphs for sure, which I'm about to show you in a bit, make those, you'll get credit for it. But if you don't remember, or you're getting confused on an exam that, oh, I don't remember for sure how the graph has to be made, then what should you do? You should not draw the graph instead and explain everything in words. I've told you 1,000 times that it's only when the question says, now here the question is not saying that explain with the help of a graph. Is the question saying explain with the help of graph? It only says support your opinion or whatever, right? But if it would have said that explain using graphs, then making graphs is compulsory, otherwise not, right? Easy. And this applies to all questions in economics, right? Students, have a look at this. Now for the negative externality, now you have to listen to this very carefully, right? Then you will understand. If you haven't seen those graphs, I am assuming you might have before. If you have not, no problem, I'll explain you. Okay, now students, have a look at this. On the y-axis, you will have always price slash cost, right? So P slash C, or you can write the full form. I'm a little short of space here, so I'm just writing P slash cost. Okay. And what do you have on the x-axis? On the x-axis, you always have output, quantity, and things like that. Easy, you good? Okay. Now, the first thing on both the negative and the positive externality, the first thing that you need to add to this graph are downward sloping is your marginal private benefit. So downward sloping is your marginal private benefit. Now let's understand what marginal private benefit is. Marginal means in economics additional. What's the additional benefit, right? Private is private. If you remember what we talked about this, right? I'm going over the entire concept again very quickly in case someone doesn't know, right? So social cost is the total cost of any action. Any action that you do or anyone else is doing in an economy, the total cost to the society of that action is social cost. Now, social cost is divided in two categories. What are those two categories? Have a look at this. So it's private cost plus external cost. So these are the two cost components of social cost. So private cost, how much is the private cost, and the external cost. So private cost is the cost associated directly with the person involved in that activity. So the person who is directly involved in an activity, so that cost is known as private cost. Let me give you an example. When I use my car, when I'm using my car, who pay for the fuel? Me. When I'm using my car, who pay for the maintenance? Me, right? But against that, there is some external cost that I generate. When I use my car, when I take my car on the road, that causes pollution. It's no, hidden secret. Everyone knows that when cars are used, they create, through the process of combustion, they create dangerous gases which are there in the atmosphere, and all cars are causing pollution in the environment, right? So that is external cost, because who faces it? Pollution is faced by other people, not by me. I mean, I'm also living in the same country, so technically I also get affected, but mostly it's the other people who are getting affected by me using my private car, right? But who pay for the fuel? I pay for the fuel. So fuel is my private cost and pollution is external cost. Are you getting me? So when you add these two things up, you get social cost. Easy? Is everyone getting this? Right? Now, similarly, just like there's social cost of any action, there is social benefit, which is the total benefit to a society of any action, right? Now, let me give you an example. When I use my car, let's stick to the same example here. What benefit do I get? Why do I consume or use my car? Because I get some benefit, convenience, and that is I save my time, it saves me energy, I don't have to take public transport or I don't have to walk, right? I am getting a benefit out of it. That's my private benefit. And then if someone else is also getting a benefit from my car, if someone else also gets a benefit from my car, not always, but sometimes the idea is that if I offer someone a free ride, right? So that is a benefit that they get, right? And they don't have to, uh, you know, pay for it, right? So that's external benefit, right? So you add private benefit and external benefit, you get social benefit. Similarly, you add external cost and private cost, you get social cost. Okay. Now, downward sloping is your marginal private benefit. So the benefit that I get, let's take the example of a car use. So the private benefit that I get from using my car is known as marginal private benefit, additional benefit, right? So that will always be downward sloping. And upward sloping would be what? Upward sloping would be your marginal private cost. Yeah, is there a question? Upward sloping will be your marginal private cost. Now, where the private cost and private benefit intersect, students, listen to me carefully. Where the private benefit, private cost intersect, that is the quantity that market will consume. Market meaning individuals, people like you and me. So market will consume cars, this much cars the market will consume, QM, right? Is this getting me? Are you getting? So market will consume this much quantity where private benefit and private cost are equal, because I did tell you that I, as a car user, don't consider how much pollution my car is causing. And no one does that technically, because if we all would have been mindful of it, then we would have never used our private cars. Instead, we would have taken public transport, right? But we don't do that. So that's an unfortunate thing, right? Okay. Now, listen to me carefully. The idea is that the benefit to the society, social benefit to the society is less. Why is social benefit less than private benefit? Why? Because there is some pollution being generated. There is some pollution that my car uses that creates, there is some pollution that my car creates. That's why the social benefit of using a car is less compared to private benefit. So the private benefit was all the comfort and the convenience that I get from using my car, right? Yes or no, right? Most of the times we are not, getting any external benefit. So that external benefit would be kind of zero, but we have to subtract from it the pollution that my car causes. Students, are you following me? Now, if I subtract the pollution that my car causes while being on the road, right? The social benefit would be lower than the private benefit, right? So that would be something less, right? Now, the marginal social benefit, students, have a look at this carefully. The marginal social benefit, students, would be to the left of it. Marginal social benefit of car use is less than the marginal private benefit. Got it? And the cost of, running that, marginal social cost is the same as marginal private cost, right? So where the social benefit is equals to the social cost, where the social benefit of car use is equal to the social cost of using car, which is the same as private cost, right? Then that is basically, that is the point where the market, that is the point where the society should consume. I repeat myself. Where the private benefit was equals to private cost, that is where the market is consuming. That is the actual point where you are consuming, right? And where the social cost of something is equals to private social benefit, where the social cost of that activity is equals to social benefit, that is where the society should consume. That is where the society should consume. Now, society should have consumed lesser quantity compared to what the market is consuming right now. Society should have consumed low quantity compared to what the market is consuming right now. So that means that currently there is what? Currently there is, students, overconsumption, right? There's overconsumption of private cars, as we already know. But now we have explained through graph. Okay, students, so the class is about to end. I'm rejoin with the same link. Rejoin with the same link quickly, right? I'm stopping the class here. Rejoin with the same link. We'll continue the class for 10-15 minutes and then stop, right? So rejoin.